Hello again and welcome back to the PhatPhish Guitar Studio. I'm Dave, and in this lesson I'm just going to kind of show you a little musical phrase and give you some ideas for different ways you can play it, different ways you can phrase it. Basically this was inspired by a question that I got sent in by somebody. Is it possible, rather than learning scales from a standing start, to learn various fills, riffs and turnarounds, etc., and once proficient in them, to infill the knowledge with scales? If you think so, could you do some lessons based on them, please? I'd like to get going with something while plodding through the scales. Yeah, and it's true, a lot of the lessons that I do on here tend to be based more around music theory and understanding kind of like why you're playing the notes that you are. So I kind of assume that you can already play the guitar and you're looking more for an understanding of music theory and understanding why, when you're playing certain notes on the neck, how those notes relate to each other. This one I thought I'd kind of go back to basics a little bit and just kind of start with a phrase and show you some ways to play that. You know, if you think about the way that you learn a foreign language, you don't just sit with a dictionary, and a dictionary is kind of like just knowing the notes of the scale. If you learn a language, you tend to start off with phrases, and that gives you an ability to be able to speak the language, and then as you learn more phrases you start to understand like the grammatical structure of the language, as well as your understanding your vocabulary, and then you can kind of start to do more vocabulary exercises as you learn more words. So thinking about how we would learn music, it's the same sort of way. You wouldn't just learn scales as a means of learning how to play music. Yes, all the notes that you play come from scales. Really, if we go back to basics a little bit, just look at a phrase, how you would play that, and then kind of use that as a building block. We start off then playing at the 5th fret on the 1st string. Use your first finger for that. Then play at the 8th fret on the 1st string, and then back down to the 5th fret. So get that. And then same pattern again, 5th fret, 8th fret, 5th fret, but on 2nd string. And down to the 3rd string this time, and we'll play 5th fret, then use your ring finger at the 7th fret, so it's 1 fret lower than on the other strings, and then back down to the 5th fret again. And we're going to finish at the 7th fret on the 4th string. Put that together. Okay, take note of the timing on this as well. We're playing this in what we call 4/4 time, so like 4 beats to the bar, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And on those first 3 beats, the 1 beat, the 2 beat and the 3 beat, we're playing 3 notes within the space of the beat. Each one is like a third of a beat long, so it's like 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, and then 4. That last note lasts for the entire beat, so it's 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4. Now, so many times I see people obsessing about are they playing the right notes or not, that they tend to ignore the timing of them and the phrasing of them. Don't. Keep an eye both on the notes that you're playing and the way that you're playing them, so you've got a nice steady 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4. So spend a bit of time letting your fingers get to grips with that. And once you're comfortable with the notes that you're playing and the phrasing and so on, let's look at a little variation on that. And what we're going to do here is, instead of finishing on the 7th fret on the 4th string, we're going to finish at the 5th fret on the 2nd string. So it's the same basic patterns, the same timing, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4. It's just that last note that's different. And we can put those 2 variations together to give us a little lick. We'll start with the second variation first, actually, and we'll get something that sounds like this. Now I want to talk a little bit about how we play the notes out of that pattern. So far, every note that we play, we're picking it, so it's strict alternate picking, down up with the picking hand. Every time there's a note, you strike the string with the pick. Now there's some techniques on the guitar where you can play notes where you don't actually have to strike the string every time. You can start off with the one called Hammer-Ons and Pull-Offs. And the idea with a hammer-on is you bring your finger down with sufficient force that you actually make the string ring out. The pull-off is kind of the inverse of that. You take your finger away, and as you're doing so, you actually pluck the string slightly, and you get a very nice smooth sound. So in the case of the lick we're playing here, we originally played it picked, down, up, down with the pick. What we can do is bring a finger down very hard and we'll play the note just by bringing the finger down with sufficient force. And taking the finger off with sufficient force that it sort of plucks the string slightly and the lower fretted note rings out. So I'm only actually playing with the pick on the first note of that pattern. And I can do that on each of the strings for the first three notes of that pattern. Pick, 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 pick. And what you should notice with that is, for all the notes are the same, it has a different sound to it. It's what you call legato. Legato is like a musical term, means kind of like smooth, like one note going very gently into another. So you haven't got the strict jump from one note up to the other, then down to the next. It's a little bit smoother because you haven't got the attack of the pick against the string each time. So you can take that idea of hammer-ons and pull-offs and play both variations of that lick. Get this, you know. Now another little variation we can have is we're going to slide up. So the last note of the lick, rather than finishing say on the 7th fret on the 4th string, we're actually going to play the 5th fret on the 4th string and then slide up like this. Or finishing with a slide from the 7th fret up to the 9th fret on the 3rd string. Now another little thing we can do is string bending. This is a little bit harder if you're a beginner and maybe you don't have as much strength in your fingers. But this is a nice use of it. I'm going to play the second variation, so we're going to be looking to finish on that note, which is same as I said, that note. So bending, what we need to do is, as well as fretting the note with this finger, you want a couple of fingers behind also pushing on the string and your thumb over the top of the neck, and you're basically squeezing and bending the string like that, and that makes the string tighter and raises the pitch. So you're doing so, you've got a slight roll backwards with your hand. So you're starting on this note, and the note you want to finish on is this one. So bend the string, and then put that into the lick. If you're not very experienced, string bending is probably going to be the hardest of the techniques that I'll show you here, just because you need the strength in your fingers and it takes time. It's important, don't strain yourself, and like I said, to help you with that, you put your thumb over the top of the neck to give you sort of like a lever, and you've got the other two fingers pushing the string as well. If you're really experienced and you've got nice strong hands, yes, you can do that bend with just one finger, but it's better to use multiple fingers behind the fretting finger to support the bend, and using the thumb as like a lever, and you kind of almost like roll the hand back slightly. It just takes time. Practice with it, and eventually you will get the hang of it. It's a really useful technique kind of to have in your trick bag. there we've got a little musical phrase, something you can practice. It uses different techniques like hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, string bending when you look at the different variations. So that's something you can just practice around with, get a feel for it. Now, as I said at the start, we're learning a phrase, but really when we're playing music, what we're actually doing is we're taking notes from a scale. What these phrases are just kind of, they're like phrases in language. When we speak, we're taking words from the dictionary, but we tend to work in phrases that, you know, if we when we first start learning a language, you know, my first lessons in French, it was like being able to say what my name was, say where I live, that sort of thing. But what they were just constructs using words from the dictionary. And what we've got here is a musical phrase, but it's using notes from a scale. Now, if you've got a copy of PhatPhish, fire that up, and what I'm telling you now is we're playing in the key of A, so select A as your root note, and then from the list of scales dial in the minor pentatonic. And if you do that, you'll see all these notes on the fingerboard. But look at these notes in particular, because those are the notes that we were playing in this musical phrase. So what you actually learned here is a couple of musical phrases, but they're all derived from the minor pentatonic. So anytime you're playing a solo, you know, over a chord progression, and it's a sort of chord progression where you say, oh, I could use a minor pentatonic for this, that little phrase is something you can include in soloing. And that pattern of notes, or some variation of it, it's something that I would use all the time in solos. Just using notes from the scale. Actually snuck in a little one there. The little extra note is the flat 5, which is in the minor blues scale, but doesn't really matter for now. What I'm getting at is we're taking notes in a musical phrase, but they actually relate back to a scale. So learning phrases like this helps you get to grips with notes from a scale. And once you know what scale that you're working with, you can look at where the notes of that scale are on the neck, and then use that as a starting point for, well, what are the notes have I got available to me? How can I come up with patterns that use those notes and come up with your own phrases? And then these phrases are things that become part of your vocabulary. And when you're playing a solo of a lead line, you're not thinking so much about, oh, I'm just taking a note from a scale or a note from a scale. You're kind of taking some pre-assembled patterns that you already know, and you're using those as like key points within your soloing. It's something that it takes practice, and it takes a bit of time to get to grips with, but this is how you become, to my mind, what I tend to say, use the phrase, it's how you become a musician or a guitarist rather than just somebody who plays the guitar. It gives you more of an understanding about what notes you're playing and why you're playing them and how they relate back, say, to a scale, and then how that scale would relate back to chords. You know, if you want to learn more music theory, there's plenty of other tutorials on the PhatPhish channel on YouTube about that. But basically, this tutorial is really about kind of just showing you a musical phrase and then kind of illustrating how that relates back to a musical scale. This one, like I said, we're playing around this position. It's in the key of A. A is your root note, and you can see the A minor pentatonic shape on the neck. But if you wanted to play that in a different key, you just move it up or down the neck. So if I wanted to play, say, in the key of C, C minor pentatonic, everything just moves up to this position here. I can play the same phrase, but I'm playing in the key of C, because the note that I'm playing here is a C, as opposed to the note here, which is an A, which is what I was playing when I was in the key of A. Okay, so there's probably quite a bit of stuff for you to get your fingers and your head around, but spend a bit of time practicing that musical phrase, practicing the techniques, get to grips with it, and then say take a look at PhatPhish see where the notes of the minor pentatonic scale are, and then kind of start to build up your own patterns and your own phrases. And that's really the first significant steps from you being just somebody who's playing notes on a guitar to actually understanding what you're playing and moving towards being a guitarist and being a musician. Okay, and that's all for now. Thanks very much for watching. If you've got a question or a suggestion for a future video, then if you want to go here, fill in the form, send your question in, and I'll try and get around to answering it in a future video. If you like this, please click like down there. If you really enjoyed it, please click subscribe also down there, and you'll be notified anytime I get a new video published on the channel. Okay, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.